Hi, everybody, and welcome again to Mike's Hidden Histories. I'm here in the city of Waterford on the south coast of Ireland to tell you about the exploit of Thomas Francis Meagher, and this is a statue here of the gentleman concerned. Now, he had a huge reputation in the 1840s in Ireland, but also had a massive reputation in the America in the 1860s, and he died at the age of 43. So in his short life, he had huge impact on both Irish and American society. Now, Thomas Francis Meagher was born here on the Mall in 1823, the 3rd of August 1823, where the Granville Hotel is now located. And he went to school locally first and then to Clongowes Wood College in County Kildare in Ireland, and then to Stonyhurst College in Lancashire in England. Now, he graduated from there in 1843 and he came back to Dublin to study for the bar. But in the September of that year, of 1843, he went to Lismore in County Waterford to a massive repeal meeting of which the famous Irish liberator Daniel O'Connell was speaking. Now, Daniel O'Connell was probably the largest political figure of 19th century Ireland. He had achieved Catholic emancipation in 1829, which ended the penal laws for Catholics, and now he wanted to end the active union which had united Ireland into Great Britain in 1801. Now, Thomas Francis Meagher attended that and was hugely impressed by this, so he became a great supporter of the repeal movement. Now, as he was studying for the bar, he became impatient with Daniel O'Connell and the leaders of the association, who were out and out pacifists. He spoke in the Conciliation Hall in Dublin in 1846, and this is where he got the name Meagher of the Sword. He saw the need for physical force to achieve independence. Home rule was not enough for him. He was more or less put out of that meeting. He's a brilliant speaker. He was a great orator. That was his real strength of convincing people. But Daniel O'Connell and others were abhorred. They thought him and his colleagues and friends, young guys, were violent revolutionaries, in fact, which they were not. So anyway, they leave, and in 1847 they form their own organisation called the Irish Confederation. Now, the following year, a group of them set up the Young Irelanders. It actually happened. They were all intellectuals who were associated with the Nation newspaper, which was a very popular newspaper at that time throughout Ireland. And people like him, Thomas Francis Meagher and William Smith O'Brien and John Mitchell and others were very involved in this. And they were known as the Young Irelanders, a name, I think, given to them by Daniel O'Connell and others, and it stuck. So two of them, William Smith O'Brien and Thomas Francis Meagher, went to Paris in 1848, the start of 1848, because there was a number of revolutions or uprisings all across Europe during that famous year. And they came back here and brought something very unique with them. They brought the Irish tricolour flag, green, white and orange, which was modelled on the tricolour of the French tricolour at that time. And the first time that was flown was here in 33 in the Mall on the 1st of March, 1848. That went on subsequently to become the national flag of Ireland. Now, later that year, there was a type of rebellion by the Young Irelanders in July 1848. It was an incident really more than anything else. Down in Ballingarry and County Tipperary, about 4 miles outside that, some of the Young Irelanders attacked some of the armed police, and there was a bit of a standoff, a bit of a shootout for a while, and that was it. It was an incident, and so it ended. And that was if you wanted to call it an uprising, that was it. But there was consequences of that, because both Thomas Francis Meagher and William Smith O'Brien were arrested with others, but these two were arrested, were tried for sedition, and were sentenced to death by hanging. Now, they were calm enough about that. In fact, as this photograph shows, this is a photograph of them in jail in Dublin with their jailer and a guard. But anyway, that was commuted. And in 1849, the summer of 1849, they were sent away to Van Diemen's Land, which was a penal colony in now Tasmania, off Australia. So he's there until 1852. So in 1852, he escapes from Tasmania, heads to Brazil, and from Brazil he goes to New York City. Now, he's not long there when he immediately begins to enhance his reputation. He was well known from his activities in Ireland, so now he's with a number of other exiled young islanders in New York City. Now, he studies for the bar, in fact, and he's called to the bar in 1855. That's the following year, in fact, he becomes an American citizen also. And he founds a newspaper called the Irish News. And he was also involved in another periodical called The Citizen. And these were promoting the idea of Irish independence and promoting the culture of Ireland amongst the Irish community now in America. And remember, this was post-famine. All during the time I've been talking to, from 1845 to 1850, there was the great famine in Ireland at that time. So we had over 1 million people emigrated at that time, and most of those were actually in America. We hear of him again at the outbreak of Civil War in 1861, and he joins the Union Army, in fact, and he with the Irish Brigade. And the Irish Brigade were called the Fighting Irish, the 69th they were called, and he's part of that. When he joins the 69th, or the Fighting Irish himself, in the Union Army, he becomes a major. And in fact, he sees action of that as a major of his own regiment in the Battle of Bull Run in July 1861. Moving on to 1862, he's now a general, and he's now involved in the Battle of Antietam in September 1862. This was a very violent battle, and this brigade suffered a huge amount of losses. In fact, they lost 540 men, over 60% of those who were involved in the battle itself from the Irish Brigade. In December that year, they're involved again in the Battle of Fredericksburg, and they lose 400 men in this time, and 14 of their 15 officers. To give an indication of how decimated the Irish Brigade is now, in May 1862, there were over 4,000 men in that. In the brigade in 1863, there are just a few hundred. Anyway, the war comes to a conclusion in 1865. Thomas Francis Meagher resigns from the army, and he becomes actually secretary of the new territory of Montana. And for a year, he was actually the acting governor of Montana. Now, his demise comes on the 1st of July, 1867. He's on a steamboat on the Missouri River near Fort Benton, and mysteriously he falls overboard or is pushed overboard. Nobody knows what happened, but nevertheless, his body was never found. He was only 43 years of age, and he had packed so much into his life. To give an indication of his fame in America, there's a county called Meagher County in Montana, and this is the statue outside the state building in the capital of Montana. And here in Waterford is another statue of Thomas Francis Meagher with the sword, Meagher of the sword. So there's a story of a brilliant Irishman, huge life here in Ireland, also in America, and his life ends at the very young age of 43. That's all from Mike's Hidden Histories. More next time.